The story of Air India flight AI-171. On June 12, 2025 at 13:38 IST, Air India flight AI-171, a Boeing 787-8, Dreamliner registered VT-ANB, lifted off from Ahmedabad, bound for London Gatwick, carrying 230 passengers and 12 crew members, climb and immediate emergency. Seconds into the climb, at around 13:38:42 IST, both engines suddenly lost thrust. The cockpit audio revealed one pilot exclaiming, "Why did you cut off?" while the other denied any action. CCTV footage from the airport showed the Ram air turbine RAT, an emergency backup, deploying almost immediately after takeoff, suggesting a catastrophic dual system failure in under a minute. Crash impact. Only 32 seconds after liftoff, the powerless aircraft descended and crashed into a hostel at BJ Medical College, about 1.5 kilometers from the runway. All 242 on board tragically perished, 241 lives lost, with just one survivor, plus 19 fatalities and 67 injuries on the ground. On July 8, 2025, the AAIB released a preliminary report pointing to both fuel control switches shifting from run to cut-off, cutting off fuel to both engines. Though they flipped back briefly, it was already too late. This triggered intense speculation around human error, sabotage, or severe system malfunction. Cockpit voice recordings documented intense confusion. "Why did you cut off?" "I didn't." Theories and controversy. Human error or deliberate act. Some news outlets, citing voice recordings and FAA advisories, speculated that the captain may have intentionally cut fuel. Aviation expert Anthony Brickhouse described this possibility as highly irregular and pointed to muscle memory and cockpit habits, technical malfunction. Indian investigative journalist Indrajit Gupta suggests an electrical failure triggered initial RAT deployment before even reaching full throttle, indicating a possible system malfunction that forced power loss on the ground. The AAIB emphasized the report is preliminary, no definitive blame assigned yet. They criticized Western press for premature speculation. India's aviation regulator has now mandated inspections of Boeing 787 and 737 fuel switch systems. Air India conducted its own inspections and reported no defects. Personal stories of loss. Vishwash. Kumar. Ramesh, the sole survivor, recounted crawling out of the cabin wreckage, wounded but alive in the chaos. Arjun Patolia, a 37-year-old father returning from honoring his wife's memory, died along with 260 others. His wife and daughters were left mourning. Families in the UK are still grieving and outraged after DNA mix-ups led to them receiving the wrong remains. The full final investigation is expected in 2026. Meanwhile, black boxes have been recovered after extensive search. Ground wreckage is being analyzed for signs of electrical failures. Regulators and Boeing have initiated system-wide inspections and implemented immediate safety directives. AI-171 was not just a flight, it was a story of lives, technology, and unanswered questions. Fuel was cut, engines failed, and in those 32 seconds we lost more than an aircraft. We lost hundreds of futures, dreams, and hopes. Now we wait for answers, for closure, for lessons to prevent another tragedy like this. The wreckage of Air India flight AI-171 lay scattered near BJ Medical College. Twisted metal, charred luggage, silence. Broken only by the sirens. For investigators, the real work had just begun. And for families, the heartbreak had only just started. The survivors and the lost. Among the wreckage, one man emerged. Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, Set 22A. Miraculously alive. Covered in burns, dazed, he crawled from the debris. He doesn't remember the crash, only the heat and the sound of people crying out. But the others? 242 lives ended in seconds. Families were devastated. Scene. Voice fades over quiet home footage. Family photos. One passenger, Arjun Patolia, had just returned from scattering his wife's ashes. His daughters waited at the gate to greet him. He never arrived. Others included students, doctors, tourists. Entire lives cut short in a crash that still has no clear answers. Confusion, DNA mistakes, and grief. In the days that followed, grief turned to outrage. Several families, especially from the UK, reported receiving the wrong remains. DNA tests were mismatched. Names were misread. One grieving mother opened a casket, only to realize it wasn't her son. Mistakes that made unbearable grief even more painful. Black boxes and global attention. Both the cockpit voice recorder, CVR, and flight data recorder, FDR, were recovered. They revealed chilling facts. The engines failed 32 seconds after takeoff. Fuel switches were flipped from run to cut off. One pilot asked, "Why did you cut off?" The other replied, "I didn't." What really happened in that cockpit? Was it sabotage? A terrible mistake? Or a fault Boeing never foresaw? Boeing and Global Fallout Boeing issued a rare statement, expressing condolences and promising cooperation. Inspections were launched on all Boeing 787s and 737s, focusing on fuel control switches. India's Aviation Authority, DGCA, grounded several jets until they passed urgent safety checks. No faults were found on other aircraft. Still trust was shaken. The impact on air. Air India, once known for its elegance, was thrust into the global spotlight for the worst possible reason. Critics questioned pilot training, aircraft maintenance, Boeing's safety standards, and whether a tragedy like this could have been prevention. A nation in mourning flags flew at half-mast. Vigils were held in Gujarat, Delhi, London, and Toronto. Photos of the victims were placed under candlelight. So many faces. So many stories. Gone in a flash. Soft music fades into silence. Narrator, gentle voice. The crash of Air India flight, AI-171, is more than an aviation disaster. It is a story of a family of questions that remain unanswered. A story that demands clarity. And above all, justice. What comes next? The final investigation report is due in mid-2026. Until then, black box data is still under analysis. Air India has updated flight protocols. Boeing faces increasing scrutiny, and families and so continue to wait for answers, for accountability, for closure. Closing message for viewers. Call to action. Let us remember the lives lost. In the long history of aviation, every disaster leaves behind lessons, but some leave behind silence. The kind of silence that only families of victims truly understand. Air India flight. AI-171 wasn't just a flight that crashed, it was a flight that exposed the fragility of systems. A moment where technology, humanity, and tragedy collided at 13:38 in the afternoon. A wake-up call to the world. Across the aviation world, questions continue to rise. Could this happen again? Why did both engines lose power so quickly? Could better software, better hardware, or better training have saved those lives? Regulators are watching. Airlines are reviewing, and passengers are thinking differently when they buckle their seatbelts for the families it never ends. Every headline fades, but grief doesn't. Some parents are still waiting to bury their children, some children are still asking where their mother went, and some receive the wrong names, the wrong remains, and no answers at all. For them, every unanswered question is a wound that won't close. One survivor, one testimony, Vishwash. Kumar, the only person who walked out alive, doesn't call himself lucky. He calls himself haunted. He remembers the smell of fuel. He remembers the moment of silence, just before the crash. And he remembers waking up surrounded by fire. He says he will never fly again. But he will speak, because the others can't. Awaiting the final report. As of today, the world still doesn't know whether it was a technical fault, a cockpit mistake, or something more deliberate. The final AIB report due in 2026 may give clarity, or it may not. Sometimes, black boxes don't tell the full story. Closing scene, visual summary. Montage of victims' photos, candles, plane on runway, black box being recovered, families waiting outside hospitals. Overlay. Flight AI-171, June 12, 2025, 242 lives. Lost. One flight, 2 engines, 32 seconds. And the world changed for hundreds of people forever. We may never know exactly why it happened, but we can choose how we respond. With truth, with justice, and with remembrance. Because the story of Air India flight AI-171 should never be forgotten. On-screen text for endcard. In memory of all 242 lives lost on Air India flight AI-171, share this story. Let their names live on. June 12, 2025. A date that must not be forgotten. Subscribe for more real stories. Comment below if you want updates when the final report is released.